So, the community jungle map for Battlefield 4 has been out in the wild for a few days now, and a lot of people have had the chance to play with it. Now, some people think it's too big, some people don't like that there's no air vehicles, and plenty of people definitely didn't listen to me in my last video when I said this was pre-alpha. There's a reason it looks like a brown beige piece of paper right now, is because it isn't finished. Let's hope we can finally get that into our heads. The amount of comments that people thought this was the finished map was just unbelievable. But anyway, like I said, a lot of people have had a chance to give some feedback on this map right now, and by far and away the most requested change, or rather development, that needs to be made is the inclusion of more cover. But what we all need to remember right now is that Dicelate are looking for feedback on the scale of the map. This is a scale test. How the objectives play together and etc. That's what they're looking for. And with that in mind, I'd like to share this really awesome idea that I saw on Reddit just yesterday. It's an idea of including a waterfall base jump in the map. Right now, the waterfall doesn't really appear to impact or dictate gameplay very much. It's basically a giant water feature, and I think a lot of people were expecting the waterfall to play more of a role in the map. Reddit user XPC Absol took the current design, reworked it, and came up with this. So as you can see, a few objectives have moved around in his design. The waterfall capture point moves further outwards, creating more space between itself and the sea capture point, which is currently the focus of most of the firefights on this map, and that was by design. Those firefights are pretty epic, and all those buildings in there are destructible, which is pretty cool. With the flag at the top of the waterfall, the view of the map would be a really valuable asset to have, and it would work similarly to the skyscraper on Seas of Shanghai, where most players use it as like an elevator to get up above the map, have a look around, and then plan like a route of objectives that they could parachute down onto. They might have fallen into enemy hands, or they might just be neutral points, but having that view of the whole map would be a really valuable asset. It also means that less players would be on the ground fighting between the road of C and B, which right now doesn't have any cover at all apart from the river, and then if you go in it you end up swimming and you're just a sitting duck. There's a very limited amount of space down there, so putting the flag all the way up at the top of the waterfall might help to eliminate some of those sort of scrappy gunfights that happen down there just because the flags are too close together. Absol also suggested that we should see the E flag move closer to the B and C flank, because right now it's just too close to the Russian deployment and it makes it far too easy to defend. I think this looks like a brilliant change to the map, and the chance of base jumping off the waterfall edge gives me a real nostalgic feeling of Damavand Peak from Battlefield 3, which was brilliantly awesome every single time you jumped off the edge of the helipad down into the quarry down the bottom. That was always a really good feeling that I had in Battlefield 3, and yeah, like I mentioned, Shanghai has that, but it's nowhere near as epic. It doesn't quite feel on the same level. Well, this waterfall could provide that. I do have one issue though. Right now, both factions essentially have two gimme flags. These are two flags that will easily be captured at the start of the round. The Russians have D and E, and the Americans have A and B. But if we were to take this waterfall base jump idea and actually implement it, you'd end up with maybe a couple of different scenarios, and these are at least ones that I can think of just looking at this design. Either the Americans get to take the waterfall for themselves at the start of the round, as they're so close to it, and then they end up with a massive advantage over the Russians before the round has even begun, because they've got that great elevated view of the whole map, or you end up with the Americans leaving that flag at the start of the round. You presumably need to take like a vehicle up a steep track to get there, and of course that takes time. Then you'd end up with them only taking the A point, causing them to bleed tickets very close to the start of the round because the Russians have taken their two objectives over the other side, which puts the Americans at a disadvantage. You'd also need to consider that if the Russians took that waterfall at any point during the round, they'd have a clear line of sight into the American faction spawn, which is basically a complete no-no in my book. And if this model was adopted, then other flags, or maybe even the waterfall location itself, would need to be more central to the map to make it balanced. So there we go. An awesome idea, I genuinely think it's amazing, that would need some serious testing to be able to get it right. And that's the beauty of the community test environment. If Dice LA really wanted to take this forward, they could, and they could get us to test it. And with that in mind, this is what David Serland had to say about the idea. He's the Dice LA lead dev. Nice suggestion. You are right about us not wanting to create a lot of vertical gameplay. We've been talking about adding a nod to Damavand Peak with a parachute base spawn for the US side or so, to be a little bit cheeky. We'll see if that pans out. So while not directly saying they would implement this idea, they have at least said that they like the look of it, and they've been toying the idea with parachute spawns themselves, which is pretty cool. And I think it's really awesome that a community member had this idea and the development team had the same idea. It's really cool when great minds think alike. But let me know what you think, guys. Leave some comments about the idea of having a parachute jump on the new jungle map. I think it would be an absolutely amazing idea, and if you're really interested, then I'll link the Reddit post in the description too, and you could read some of the comments there as well. But thanks very much for watching. If you could leave me a rating, that'd be much appreciated. And head on over to g2a.com/r/Westy for great deals on the latest games. Links in the description. But until next time, my name is Westy, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.